You're probably throwing away money every week. Maybe not like this, more like this. An estimated $15 billion worth of food gets wasted each year because we're throwing it out too early. Why? Well, because of date label confusion. You know, like the dates on the side of your yogurt, milk, eggs, ketchup, etc. But there's not just one date label to rule them all. Instead, there's a dizzying variety of terms like best by, use by, enjoy by, or sell by, which actually mean different things when it comes to food freshness. So in this video, we're going to break down the common labels and what they mean. Talk about what's being done to simplify the system, and how you can save money and waste less food. Because here's the thing, wasting food isn't just hurting your bank account, it's also not great for the planet. Think about all the resources and energy it took to grow or produce the food and get it to your home. When food is wasted, the resources that go into it are wasted too. Even worse, if your food ends up in a landfill, it will decay and emit methane, a potent greenhouse gas that's heating the planet. Roughly 8% of global emissions come from the food we waste, so reducing your food waste is one of the biggest and most meaningful individual climate actions you can take. You ready to get started? Let's dig in. Our expert on this fantastical food waste journey is Dana Gunders from the nonprofit Refed. They're focused on studying food waste and finding solutions.
We estimate that over $15 billion worth of food is going to waste in people's homes because they're throwing it away too early. They really don't understand that the majority of dates on food are meant to be about quality and when product is at its freshest and that they can eat the product after.
So when you see a label that says something like best by or use by,
are really meant to talk to us as consumers.
But a label that says sell by
is meant to be a communication to the store that's selling the product to sell it by then. So they're typically earlier to allow people to get those products home and have, good quality once it's home.
But none of those labels carry a hard and fast rule about whether the food is safe to eat or not after the date passes. In fact, infant formula is the only federally regulated product required to have a date label.
So right now, there are actually no legal definitions associated with any of the labels that you see on food. It's really up to the manufacturer whether they use something like use by or best by or sell by. The industry is moving towards a system of just two standard labels, one being best if used by and the other being used by. And when companies are using that system, they use the best if used by to indicate the freshness or quality date, but that something is safe to eat after. Whereas they use a use by date to indicate there may be some increased risk and that they would prefer you discard that product afterwards. The challenge is that right now we have no way of knowing which companies are using that system.
No wonder it's so confusing. The Food and Drug Administration has recommended manufacturers stick to those two labels, best if used by or used by, but the date label confusion persists. A 2022 survey by researchers at the University of Maryland found at least 50 different date labels used in U.S. grocery stores. Now, a bill called the Food Date Labeling Act, which would create standard definitions for those two recommended labels, has stalled in Congress. So how is anyone supposed to know whether or not their food has actually gone bad?
I'd say, if there's a product that makes you nervous or, you're not sure about it, the best thing to do is to cook it, something that can be cooked. So something like deli meat or a bag of spinach, if you're not sure, you can always throw those on a pan and that will kill off most of the pathogens that might be on it. But actually, when people get sick from food, it's typically from pathogens like E. coli or salmonella that we hear about that were on the food to begin with, and we'll get us sick no matter how old that food is. The bacteria and enzymes that decay food and make it old are not the same ones as the ones that you hear about in food poisoning.
What about something with a shorter shelf life, like milk or cheese?
I think dairy is one of those products that people throw out on the date very often, which is interesting because of pasteurization, dairy is actually one of the safest products. It goes through a whole step just to kind of kill off bacteria and make sure that it's safe. So yogurt, milk, cheese that doesn't have mold on it. They can all be eaten well after the date, as long as they, again, look fine, smell fine, and taste fine.
The smell test, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. So have we convinced you to maybe think twice before throwing out that yogurt? Here's Dana again with more reasons to reduce your food waste.
And I think the biggest benefit is that you save money, right? We estimate that the average family of 4 is spending around $2,700 with food prices these days on food that they never actually eat. So it's real money. Beyond that, it has a huge climate benefit, more than you might imagine. And then, of course, there's just kind of the moral conundrum that, there are still around 40 million people around the US who are food insecure. And, just throwing food out doesn't feel right when you know that other people don't have much. We in our homes make up the largest source of food waste across the country, more than grocery stores or farms or restaurants. And a lot of it is just about how we manage food.
Besides clearing up label confusion, there are some really easy ways to reduce food waste in your home. And it starts with food shopping.
Shopping is really when you commit to that food. So make sure that in the particular week ahead, you have time to use that food. The second is to freeze food. Freezers are like a magic pause button, and you can freeze almost anything. Milk, bread, if you slice it, cheese, just shred it ahead of time, and even that half jar of pasta sauce that you haven't used can just go to the freezer and come out when you're ready to use it. Another great strategy is to make sure to kind of shop your fridge before you go out and shop the store. A lot of people have a go-to meal that they will use, like frittatas or taco night, or some people call it stir fry days, but ways to use up what you have before you go out and buy more.
We also love smoothies to use up those fruits or veggies that may be on their way out. And don't forget about composting your food scraps to avoid the trip to the landfill. If you have a favorite way to reduce household food waste, let us know in the comments. And subscribe to Pattrn for more climate solutions and videos like this one.